Hi, I'm Jim Doty, and welcome to Chapman Shorts. I'm with Marta Bethal, and we're going to be doing something new today.
Great.
We're going to be showing Chapman documentaries produced by a documentary program that we now have at Chapman University as a result of the leadership of Jeff Swimmer, a noted documentary artist in his own right, having done work on the incredible series Nature on PBS and a lot of work for the National Geographic. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Tell us about this, these particular documentaries we're going to be seeing today. The Genesis.
Yeah, I'm happy to. These documentaries are the second year of a program that we've had here at Dodge, taking students around the world doing films about innovative non-governmental organizations. And this is the second year of the program. We went to Cameroon this year in West Africa. And last year we went to Cambodia. The students did films about three very different topics. And I'll introduce we have a couple of the filmmakers here from two of the three films that were produced this year. One of them is about gorillas and other primates, and the problem of people consuming as a kind of a delicacy in their diet what they call bushmeat, which is very often primates, sometimes endangered primates. And so this is a film about the eating of bushmeat and some non-governmental organizations in Cameroon that are trying to fight this problem, to save the rapidly dwindling numbers of primates.
And do you want to introduce your...
Yeah, one of the filmmakers on this team. Each team had four people, and we have here with us today Hannah Taylor. And she's one of the four filmmakers who worked on this film, and so we'll be able to talk about it afterwards. And she played a vital role, and you might even be surprised that there's one scene that is featuring Hannah Taylor as well.
Right.
In the film, which is a little unusual for our films. Most of the time you don't see the students, but this one she plays a very prominent and kind of amazing part in this film on screen.
And the other film we'll be seeing later after that one?
Yeah, another film. This is one of our other filmmakers. His name is Matt Prouty, and he is a filmmaker at Dodge, film student, and he worked on a film about native indigenous peoples in West Africa, commonly known as pygmies, and the issues that they face particularly from logging companies who are wrecking the forest, who are really mowing down the forest that they live in, that they call home, and replacing them usually with palm oil, which is a very trendy global oil used in cooking and for automobiles, that is having the problem of destroying the forest that these pygmies, as most people know them, live in. So he worked on a film. He lived with pygmies in these pygmy villages in Cameroon, West Africa, with three other filmmakers.
Well, his reputation precedes him because he's also made a mark at Chapman as a star of our soccer team, and this is the first time in many a year that our soccer team made it to the regional championship or playoffs. So great to have you on the show, and know that I never realized you were a filmmaker. So our first film will be on the
first will be called Eye to Eye, about gorillas and bushmeat. Yeah.
Great, Craig.
All right.
Let's roll.
What a wonderful species we humans are. We've surpassed every other form of life in our ability to transform the world to suit our needs and ambitions. But where is this leading us? Cameroon, Africa. Lush rainforests teeming with life and a huge biodiversity. country where humans and nature have lived in harmony for thousands of years. Today, all this is radically changing.
Quand j'ai commencé la chasse, je choisissais. À une saison, quand je vois que maintenant, pour tuer le lièvre, j'étais bêté, j'ai choisi les gorilles. J'ai tué vraiment beaucoup de gorilles. Par semaine, des fois 4-5. Donc imaginez pendant 10 ans, c'est beaucoup.
As we speak, the wildlife in Cameroon is being exterminated at a rate that we will not be able to look back in the next 10 years and see anything left.
Donc des animaux qui sont vraiment diminués comme le gorille, chimpanzé, éléphant, fini. Il n'y a pas un futur pour eux, ça va finir.
Just last week I heard there were how many tons of wild meat was caught coming out of the Jar Forest Reserve with multiple chimpanzees and gorilla meat in there.
In 1994, the Ministry of Forestry and Wildlife introduced a law to prevent the smuggling and illegal trade of wild animals. Transgressors are punished with up to 3 years imprisonment and a fine of up to 10 million CFA francs. Unfortunately, there are massive problems with enforcing the law.
The protection of wildlife, we have ministries and people who protect wildlife, but the way it is run in such a way, in a corrupt atmosphere, is such that it is not effective.
First, to enforce a law, it means you see what you are enforcing a law. And if you want to enforce a law on something you don't see, it will not, I wonder how it will be practical.
There are cases of neglect where we allow the military people or those who are controlling the roads, they see people carrying wildlife, as long as you can just give them one of the carcasses.
In 2002, the Cameroonian government and the Cameroon Wildlife Aid Fund created Mefu National Park. Rachel Hogan, manager of the Cameroon Wildlife Aid Fund, together with national and international volunteers, is currently running the project. Their mission is to protect orphaned primates from the illegal bushmeat trade and reintroduce them into their natural environment.
The bushmeat trade isn't about, you know, local communities going in and killing what they needed to kill to sustain their families. Now it's on a commercial level. And, you know, sometimes it does feel that we're never going to get anywhere. It's either going to go one way or the other. Something will happen that will stop everything. Now, whether that's through good education and making it illegal that stops people doing this, or whether it's because everything's wiped out, there's nothing left to kill in the end, it's going to go one way or the other.
Native Cameroonian Dennis Nadello is one of the leading advocates for gorilla rights in Cameroon. Dennis is a PhD student at the University of Brussels. His thesis is about the relations between traditional knowledge and preservation of habitat for the great apes.
For example, I was in one village in Bechati, and they have never seen a copy of the wildlife law that prohibits hunting of wildlife. And they don't even know why it should be that way. They don't see a government officials for 1 year. And it is there in those communities adjacent to the habitats of apes, where the destruction is taking place. So the government mechanism really need to be overhauled to come from a community level. a community-based approach, a community where the community can get some ownership. They can know that, yes, this is our law.
We're not solving that problem. We're just kind of like a sticking plaster over the problem to house these orphans that are coming in. So how I would like to see is that there's a huge shift in Cameroon and the bushmeat trade is stopped. And then we're not getting all these orphans in, that it stops right here, and that we're able to find a safe forest area that we can reintroduce what we've got out in the forest. Not all of our population are introduction candidates. Some of them are so traumatised we'll never be able to put them back into the wild. But we have a responsibility for the ones that aren't to put them back where they belong, because they don't belong out in Mefu in an enclosure.
You people find it as a big problem because you don't want that primate to be extinct. But how do we know? How do we control? How do we check it? That's the problem. I think the only way that they can get these things not to be extinct is that the zoos take care of the ones that they have, so that they can remain there as history. They shoot chimps. I've seen the chimpanzee shot, killed in my place. But not the gorilla.
For the Cross River gorilla, they are current estimate puts it at 300 animals in the wild, straddled in the border between Cameroon and Nigeria, and the population in Cameroon is less than 150, and that is all that is left of the Cross River gorilla, fragmented in 11 completely isolated patches of forest.
According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, almost 50% of the world's 634 primate species are at risk of extinction. Overall, half the globe's 5,500 known mammals are declining in population, and a quarter are clearly at risk of disappearing forever. Is it already too late? With the hope to find a solution to the problem, a number of other private, local, and international organizations, such as the Muna Foundation, the United Africa Association, and the Gorilla Foundation, are striving to find alternative ways to preserve nature and wildlife at the root level. They are doing this through a variety of programs aimed at raising awareness amongst youth and adults.
I think that we should be able to educate the people in the villages to protect the gorillas by themselves, not only sending forest guards there, but to draw a program as they did in Kenya, in which part of the tourist revenue coming from the tourism of elephants and the wildlife is invested in the village.
We found that sport is really effective. Cameroonians love sport, they love football, which is why we started this whole sports day and football teams. And it's not just a case of two teams having a football match. There'll be questions thrown in, and you find the adults, before there's a match, everyone will be there, and the educators will be asking them questions to do with conservation, and they'll have a lesson beforehand.
L'option pour moi, pour pouvoir vraiment conserver les animaux, c'est le dialogue entre des gens qui vivent en forêt avec le gouvernement.
Also art. We had a day where all the children made gorilla masks and paraded through the village wearing their gorilla masks and banners saying "Save Gorillas." The radio station, and people were listening, and you could hear people in the streets singing the tune about not to eat chimpanzees. And we're trying to get that on the television as well now. So that awareness, you can see it in little drabs here and there, and there is a change. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, it's a gradual process, but from the people we deal in, you can see a change in thought.
Amongst everyone else, Dennis has a unique approach to the problem. He is looking for a solution at the very roots of the African culture: traditional storytelling. Dennis is using traditional storytelling as a way to promote wildlife conservation values. He spent many months in the heart of the jungle in the Menju province to gather stories and practices about gorillas that new generations have already lost. His goal is to use these stories to inform new generations and to spread the conservation values.
When I was young, my grandmother used to summon us in the evening beside a fire. She usually narrates tales about the forest. Most of them are always about people and wildlife. So she made us to know that the forest is not only important as a source of forest products or a source of livelihood, but it's an important spiritual, always stories come from a spiritual place. It has a spiritual and social significance. And inside the forest where people and wildlife come together, where nature in its full form is alive. And when the stories, when you now go to school, on your way to school, you narrate the story to your friend, and your friend narrates to his friend, and this story passed down a village, it becomes a traditional story that has an identity attached to it. This is what I talk about traditional stories as a powerful tool to raising awareness about apes.
One morning, and when he was tapping, there was a gorilla who was coming and drinking the palm wine. One morning he came, he saw that immediately the gorilla has just drunk his wine.
And they had don't be clean. Something, you know, the touch down something, and that time get some baby. We don't come say when they hold so baby don't come say we so be clean. And we call that one say like young come shock. Big one.
Picking the tell say that anymore. Not anymore. No one say me picking they don't grow. No. Some kind animal where they inside bush. Some will they take care. Gorilla where they inside that we own.
Take this one. You put them for water. Then you take this one. You drop them for there. About 3 drops. They will take and wash the picking. For 3 months. When the picking they grow, power delay for that picking over. Then the picking will be very healthy. You know, see quickly.
People of my generation in Cameroon now do not care because we never were told anything about primates before. But if a young child in class 1 of primary school starts to know that there are animals like chimpanzee and gorilla, and that they look like a person, and that they have 5 fingers, and he grows up with this knowledge system, and that a gorilla is almost closely identical to human, and will laugh like a human, and will play like a human, and it's so, you know, when a child gets up with this, you know, how he perceives a chimpanzee is no longer like an animal that should be eaten. And if he grows with it, this is where we're making the difference.
So, as a group of American and international students visiting Cameroon for the first time, we wondered whether we could make some sort of difference. We thought that it would be a great idea to contribute to the Conservation Values program, so we organized a trip for a small group of deaf students from Bamenda to travel to Methu National Park in the capital, Yaoundé. We did the same with kids from the Methodist Church in Yaoundé. Neither group had ever seen a wild primate before.
Well, yeah, I want to thank you for that question. Animals are of different categories. There are some that are very dangerous, and there are some that are kind, like the cocoa we are talking about.
In Jinnikijim Secondary School in the rural countryside near Bamenda, hearing-impaired students are taught environmental and animal conservation through Coco's stories. Coco is a lowland gorilla that acts as an ambassador of the empathy education programs because she can understand more than 1,000 signs based on American Sign Language. Coco is the link that helps reinforce empathy in these children towards gorillas. Though Coco now lives at the Gorilla Foundation site in Northern California, her work is shedding light on the similarities between humans and gorillas around the world.
Many of them have never been out of the Northwest region before. They will go to see Yaoundé. The trip by itself will let them see a lot of things. But the interesting one they will appreciate is looking at the gorilla when you take them to the sanctuary, where they will be able to see this animal that behaves like a human being, that cannot talk, but it can transmit a message. And I think that's what will interest them most.
I remember when I came for the assessment, they kept saying they wanted to see a gorilla. They want to see a gorilla, they need to see one. They've never seen one before. They want to, well, like Coco, they wanted to see Coco and wanted to see other gorillas because around them there are no animals that they can really say, oh yes, you won't find that species, that they have not gotten close to. So when they hear of Coco, they see the signing, it's like, they still need to feel it real. They need to see it with their own naked eyes and get closer.
On our way from Bamenda to Yaoundé, we had a small surprise. It's about those little things that count.
So we're getting a monkey to ride with us. They're going to the market. Here, let me.
Okay.
They're going to the market, and there's a monkey that they were going to kill. And I said, no, you can't go see a monkey that you know is going to be killed and not save it. So I said, I'll buy the monkey. And they said, no, that's crazy. And I said, no, you must. You can't. This is what we're all about. We love gorillas. We love monkeys. You must save the monkey. And they said, okay.
We bought a baby monkey in a market for the amount it would have cost to keep it alive until they'd kill it. We transported him 170 miles through numerous checkpoints to Mefu to finally give him a better chance to survive. We named him Joni. He now lives in the gorilla sanctuary under the care of Rachel with others of his kind. This was our big lesson of empathy and conservation values.
He likes free.
You can make a change with the youngsters. The adults, it's difficult because there's that set mindset, whereas when we work with the children, you know, and you get them to understand, they also then go home and speak about it to the rest of the family. And that's why it's really important, because you're dealing with the next generation, really, that will then take that mindset and that thought onwards.
While we were busy with the rescue of Joni, the children from the Methodist school in Yaoundé were also traveling to Mefu to see the primates for the first time.
For sure, the children will come back with a new experience. They will be able to touch the creation, you know, the nature of God. They will see trees, they will see fruits, they will see animals. And then they will be able to ask a lot of questions. I know, as a pastor, they will come to me and they will ask me a lot of questions. I'm prepared for that.
If we lose all the apes, our own children will never get to know them, our own closest relatives. I say, if we don't start with apes, if the slaughtering is taking place for apes, for non-human primates, you know, for the ones that are really closest to us, and if we can't stop it, what hope is there for any wildlife anywhere else in Africa?
Looking at the type, the gorilla and the human being, there are lots of similarities. There are lots of things we share in common, which I think that as the children draw closer to the gorillas, it brings them, it gives a sense of belonging. It gives them a sense of belonging to that family and feeling that the gorilla is one of you.
To be able to change people, you must be persistent. And that is what is needed, persistent education. That starts with the younger generation, reinforcing knowledge, bringing back traditional knowledge, teaching them to love primates, using all methods possible.
Thanks to the efforts of Dennis and the Gorilla Foundation, Joseph is not a hunter anymore.
Alors, il a dit, mais Joseph, maintenant, on va concrétiser des choses. Il me donne le bic avec le...
Today, he is a protector of wildlife.
Comme ça, là. Il me dit, à partir d'aujourd'hui, écris ici que je ne vais plus chasser. Tu m'as demandé comment il a été converti pour devenir qui je suis aujourd'hui. Je ne vais plus chasser.
Well, Jeff, you must be very proud of your students and their works of art.
It's a very powerful film. I've seen it several times, of course, and every time it gives me the chills, especially the ending where they have the quotes from as if spoken from the gorillas. I think that's amazing, and the music and the passion and the characters. It's a fantastic film. I think it does not look like a student-made film. I think it looks like a professional documentary film.
I'm sure you had a lot to do with that.
Well, it's their work. They did it.
Hannah, you must feel gratified that there's a little furry critter out there that's around because of you.
We were definitely happy to save the monkey. It was an incredible experience, and it definitely brought the whole thing full circle.
Cute little guy.
Yes.
Sure, they were trying to feed, that was his size, right? So,
the people that owned the monkey did not realize that it was full grown, so they were trying to feed it, to try to fatten it up and get it big so that they could make more money off of it. But when we brought it to the sanctuary, we found out that it was just a petite little monkey.
Do you know how long this program has been in existence of educating the community members to take care of the monkeys and the gorillas and not eat the meat?
This is a newer program, especially with the deaf students. I think it's only been around for a couple years now, but the deaf students really, more than anyone, have taken to the gorillas because they love the fact that they can communicate because they can both sign. And so they really wanted to meet Coco, the gorilla who could sign, because because they wanted to be able to communicate with the gorillas.
Yes,
So,
that's great. That's
Did you ever feel unsafe there, Hannah? And you're dealing with a subject where people are doing illegal things, and here you're kind of investigating that.
we had been warned a little bit to be careful with our cameras, and there were definitely some times when people didn't want to be filmed. But when we were out in the really beautiful, lush areas, people were very friendly, and you felt really, really safe. It was more when you were in the city that people were a little bit more cautious of the cameras. So, but overall, people were so warm, and you definitely felt safe.
So you did this documentary with some teammates. What was your role in making the documentary?
I'm the public relations student, which is at Dodge as part of the film school. So my role was mostly kind of socializing. I had an incredible team. We had a brilliant cinematographer, Nico. Andrea was amazing. He also did great camera work and really put together a lot of the editing. And then Brianna was our production manager, and she did an amazing job as well. She really kept us on top of everything. But the film students are, there's so much they have to keep track of. So my job was mostly just to kind of keep everyone we were working with. I brought Lanyard to play with the kids, and I'd be coloring or trying to talk to people, even if it was, if they spoke Pygmy or Pidgin English, which was really kind of fun.
So lining up the interviewees.
Yeah, lining up the interviewees and just keeping people comfortable.
Great.
I found the music very moving, very powerful. It almost helped tell the story. How did that work? How do you...
That was all Andrea. Andrea's very, very talented. He actually has a PhD on top of everything else. But yeah, he found some amazing music, and when he threw it all together, we were really excited.
Wow.
They license some music from a library that creates this music, especially for films. And so you choose music based on the themes that you want to convey, and then you pay a license fee.
Oh.
And this program actually does have some budget to be able to do things like that, to license music for festivals and things like that. So they chose some really good music. It was made by an Italian production company. And the filmmaker was actually Italian, and it has that kind of operatic quality to it, which I think...
Maybe that's why I liked it.
Absolutely, you're an opera fan, I know, so yeah.
Well, Jeff, tell us about the next film we're going to see.
Yeah, the next film is a fascinating film. It's about the group that most of the world knows as Pygmies, the indigenous peoples that live in Central and West Africa. And for many years now, as the forests that they live in have become more and more valuable to loggers for the wood and for other forest products, and for replacing the wood with palm oil trees, they become very lucrative forests indeed. And it's their home. They've lived in these forests for thousands of years. They hunt there, they live there, they find their medicine there, they build their homes there. They've lived there for many, many generations. And they're being moved off their lands onto marginal lands, or sometimes out of their forests altogether. And so some NGOs that Matt Prouty and his team discovered are working with groups who are trying to help them to recover their land and to be able to have more of a say in how their nation, how Cameroon deals with their vanishing forests.
Matt, were you with Hannah, or were the film groups separated and off in different towns, and then maybe you landed together and then you flew back together, or were you ever together?
We did meet up a couple times, but overall I really didn't see her or her group that often.
So you really bonded with your group, and that's it?
Absolutely. I mean, we all bonded initially while, in the preparation for the trip. I'd say all 12 of us are very tight, but
I can understand because you had a completely different subject.
Yeah, exactly.
And different locales for the shooting.
Absolutely. We were in completely separate parts of the country.
How long was this? How long were you there?
We were there for, I think we were in Cameroon for a total of 12 days.
12 days.
With, days of travel on either side.
Yeah. And is there a pre and post part of this course where you prepare for it before you go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually like a 3-semester preparation, or a 3-semester course. So last spring, we spent an entire semester preparing and deciding which country even we were going to go to, and then which NGOs each student group would go and work with. And then over the summer, of course, we went to Cameroon and shot the film. And then in the fall, we edited it and did all the post-production for that. And of course, recently just screened it at the school, at the film school.
Great experience.
What an experience.
That's
exactly.
terrific. Yeah. Well, Jeff, are we ready?
Yeah, let's go. This film is called Shadows in the Forest, and it's a terrific film.
Craig, let's roll.
For the Bageli community in southwest Cameroon, the forest is the epicenter of their world. It has defined their culture and their very existence.
C'est le living Pindi, Jacques, j'ai 25. Je commande encore. Oui.
Même chose?
On lance, c'est prêt. Maintenant, je prends la matière, je m'en vais seulement. Donc, nos grands-parents, tout, ils nous ont laissés ici. Ils sont morts, ils nous ont laissés ici. Donc, ça fait depuis. On est d'abord resté là-bas en bas, on est quitté là-bas en montant jusqu'ici là.
The Baka and Bageli, also known as Pygmies, have a unique and peaceful culture. However, they are overlooked by society as their way of life rapidly disappears.
Approximately 15 years ago, I was looking at the forest. At that time, I had absolutely no idea of the social impact of logging.
Samuel Nguifo is an attorney in Cameroon who has been working with indigenous communities for the last 15 years. His organization, the Center for the Environment and Development, works to obtain land rights for the Baka and Bageli communities.
So, visiting some of the villages, we realized that everywhere where there was a logging concession, there were problems with the local communities. I had heard about indigenous people, the so-called Pygmies, like everybody else in Cameroon, but I really did not know who they were and what they were doing. So it was also my first experience with these indigenous people. And I was shocked by two things. First, it was the quality, the richness of their culture. And second, the fact that it was a big paradox. The culture is so rich, but at the same time they are so marginalized by their Bantu neighbors and by the administration, the loggers. Everybody considered them as being just a little bit more than animals.
Logging is only half the problem in Cameroon. Palm oil companies destroy the forest and replace it with a plantation of palm trees, transforming the forest into uninhabitable land. Without the forest, the Baka and Bageli cannot continue their traditional way of life.
Il y avait la forêt ici, partout, c'était la forêt vieille. Et partout, c'était la forêt, il n'y avait pas les palmes. Mais après maintenant...
Soca Palm is the largest palm oil plantation in Cameroon. It is primarily funded by French corporations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. These forces have essentially privatized acres and acres of the forest, with revenue going into foreign hands rather than into the communities.
I think it will already be very difficult for this community to continue live here and keep the same standards of living. But at the same time, if they lose this small portion of the forest, I can say for sure that there will be no future for this community.
Si on veut aller toucher à les palmes, on s'en va nous mettre
on vient
à la
arrêter
prison.
la gendarmerie. Allez, on peut nous taper en ville.
En ville. La brousse est finie. Je vis de ma brousse. Mais maintenant, c'est déjà fini.
Avant, c'était bien. Je quitte là-bas la maison. Je viens ici. Je peux trouver un animal ici, là. Je tue ça, je rentre à la maison. Mais maintenant, il faut aller loin.
Comme ça.
Their families are now restricted to a tiny plot of land near the road as they watch their forest disappear.
So they were sanctioned basically because they were living in the most sustainable way possible. They lost their right.
Doko ke ati ana bele doko ke nga basi a bele parce bele e o eke nga ba mete e ko fe parce poki anga wa bele dandu anga wa bele so anga wa bele ba wa bele e ko komba mo fe baka ati ete bim e na wa de to bele.
Masumba Manfred is a Cameroonian anthropologist who has spent time with indigenous communities and has a deep understanding of their culture.
Sending them out from their forest is frustrating them. Because when they get now to the village, to the roadside, where the Bantus are already settled, they are under the Bantus.
The mainstream culture, also known as a Bantu, used to live in the forest with the indigenous communities. But the Bantu began to tear down the trees to establish farms, towns, and eventually the cities most Cameroonians live in today. Currently, the Bantu make up roughly 80% of Cameroon's population.
Quand on était à l'école, on nous apprenait que les pygmées étaient des gens sauvages qui vivaient dans les arbres, et puis enfin, c'est des gens sauvages quoi.
They have a very good cultural view that the Bantus don't respect. You need to go to these villages, you see the disrespect of human rights. A pygmy will work for a Bantu a whole day, and the Bantu will pay him 250 francs. Sometimes they will give him just a root of cassava. Take this and carry home and eat.
Nous devons essayer de ménager là, parce que le terrain là, il y a les propriétaires qui viennent se réclamer que le terrain, si ce n'est pas à vous, il faut quitter.
On doit quitter.
C'est pour cela que nous n'avons pas collaboré avec les gens que vous avez vus à côté là, les Bantous là. On ne cherche même pas moyen de collaborer avec eux. Parce qu'ils nous menacent en disant que ça, ce sont les pygmées, on doit les menacer.
Taper même, tuer même.
On tue même, on le frappe.
Oui.
Subitement, la mort.
Quand il vient là-bas, il vient nous trouver là, il commence à nous taper, frapper partout. Même les vieilles mamans, ils tapent, ils tuent même. Oui, c'est comme ça. Les Bantous nous dérangent ici, pêle-mêle. Et là, on cherche maintenant, là, on peut rester. C'est le gouvernement qu'on demande qu'il doit chercher là où il peut aller nous mettre. Même si c'est dans la forêt, pas nous laisser là-bas, loin là-bas. C'est mieux.
He would just accept the Bantu man beat him. Why? Because right in his head, he knows that they call me that I'm a bushman, that I come from the forest, that I don't know anything, that I'm supposed to obey. You know, it is like a child who has been bullied to an extent that he no longer has self-confidence, even to defend himself, even when he's right.
Dennis Ndello from the Gorilla Foundation is working with the Baka, using their knowledge of the forest to help protect nature, and thus their way of life. Ironically, he and Samuel Nguifo are utilizing modern GPS technology to preserve one of the most ancient cultures.
GPS.
C'est un instrument that you use to map the position of.
The first use of the map is, well, if the map is well done, if you are able to map the space that you use, the resources that you use, and to show the contradiction with either the logging or the conservation or any other use that is planned on the forest, then you have a good tool to start the discussion with the external actors.
Entre,
ici.
oui.
Ça peut marquer.
Oui, ok.
Marquer.
Ok. Marque entre. Oui.
So, maintenant, fais comme ça.
When we came in with the GPS, I was one of those who said they will never be able to learn. It's so complex. But it took less than 1 day in every community for them to understand how it works, what to do with it. And if you see the maps that were made by indigenous communities using GPS, you will just be astonished. Especially knowing that some of them don't speak English, don't speak French, cannot read, but they understand so quickly, you only have to recognize that they are really intelligent.
La forêt finit déjà comme ça là. Parce qu'ici là, on a déjà notre parcelle qu'on a demandé au gouvernement, une forêt communautaire. Maintenant, on peut le conserver comme pour nous déjà et garder aussi cette forêt. Ça ne finit pas. Que ça ne doit pas finir.
The dominant culture here thinks it's best for everybody to be settled, to be a farmer or to get a proper job, not to be spending his life walking around inside the forest.
In an attempt to develop the pygmy, we have helped to ruin the identity. And the loss, perhaps we can't repair it anymore because they are totally confused. You see a pygmy that say, oh yes, I think living on the roadside is perfect. But in the morning you find him going into the forest and he says that, oh, if I don't go into the forest, I lose.
Okay.
Il discute le terrain avec nous. C'est ça. Ils ne veulent même pas sentir qu'il y a les gens ici comme un pygmée.
The pygmies that are along the logging roads, believe it or not, are at the crossroads of their culture becoming extinct. And this means they lose completely their identity because they have not been able to integrate to become like society.
But if we respect the culture of the pygmy, if we can take from them that idea that they work together, they eat together, they stay together, one man's problem is another one's concern, then it's nice for the world at large.
There are many things that we have to learn from them, and we don't have to consider indigenous communities as being second-type citizens. They really have many things to provide to us. I don't think we are very proud as humanity to have lost some of the very old culture that have disappeared, like the Native Americans. And if we think it was a mistake to let them disappear, we have to do something to protect these cultures.
And you look to find that thing.
I'm very impressed.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Matt, you didn't say over? Over?
Well, Matt, quite a production.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think you learned from the experience?
Oh,
The thing
man.
maybe the most important thing you learned.
I think the most important thing that I learned is that, I had never really traveled much anywhere outside the country. I think, nowhere near as far as Cameroon. And I think the biggest thing for me was just realizing the basic things we share with all humans, no matter what part of the planet we're on. You can communicate to someone that doesn't speak a word of your own language, no matter what. There's just those universal things we all share, whether it be with someone, our neighbor, or someone in a indigenous community halfway across the world.
If you were to if we were in a time machine and we were able to go 50 years in the future, do you think the pygmies as they live now, will they still be there?
It's still in the balance. The one encouraging thing is the people we see like Samuel and Dennis who are working hard and making their life's work to protect these people. And I think things are definitely improving in Cameroon. I think, as education improves, as more people become aware of the problems in their own countries, I think a lot of local Cameroonians can fix their own problems. That's a debate that we had as a group. Do these African countries need foreigners, foreign aid to come and help themselves, or can Africans help Africans? And I think in Cameroon we definitely saw some encouraging signs that they can help out themselves.
What size are these communities?
The communities that we visited, very specific families, maybe a few families together. The first one was very small, actually, probably somewhere between 25 and 30 people. However, the second community we stayed with was closer to around 200.
Do they have their own schools and education?
They have their own traditional values that they educate themselves. Their parents, as a child, you learn from your parents, essentially.
So it's not like going to school and...
That is something that's actually changing, and it was addressed a little bit in the film where they're starting to bring on some of the mainstream culture in their own identity. As a pygmy, it doesn't quite mean you live strictly in the forest now. They live on roadsides, and some of them do travel to school.
Do you think, though, that may be more dangerous than the French industrialists in terms of affecting their culture, and that is education? As many other indigenous groups, once they get educated, they leave the tribes and go to the big city for other opportunities.
Exactly, and that's so I think the first problem to address is making sure they can stay in their forest and they don't get pushed to the roadsides. Because when they get pushed to the roadsides, they now have much less of a choice as far as what they can do with the forest. So then they're sort of forced to go get an education and find a new way to live.
Now you're going to be a documentary film artist?
You know what? This experience has definitely made that a definite option in my mind. I hope to work in Hollywood on feature films, but documentaries has established a place in my heart, definitely.
Great. Jeff, what's next for our other budding documentary students? What's next on the slate?
Next summer, we just accepted 15 students to next year's program, so we're expanding a little bit. Yeah, that's getting close to the max. Might be the max. We'll soon find out. And we're going to go to Southern Africa this time. So the first year went to Cambodia, and then West Africa, and now we're going to go to Southern Africa. We'll be there just before the World Cup starts in South Africa, so hopefully we'll be in and out without too much difficulty. But yeah, we're thinking Botswana, Namibia, Malawi, Zambia, somewhere in Southern Africa, a very different kind of culture. And we're going to incorporate some wildlife filming at the end for a day or so. Everybody who's going is going to become a National Geographic wildlife filmmaker for a day or two on a safari. So that's going to be amazing.
Cool.
Every year we try to add some elements to it to make it, just better and better every year. So it's amazing. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, thank you for what you're doing in our documentary film program.
Thank you for having me here.
And I know we're going to see more of you on Chapman Shorts.
All right, thanks a lot.